In Module 3.5, we will look at the impact of climate change on agricultural infrastructure in Suriname. Let's explore the agricultural landscape in Suriname. In Suriname, only 8% of the total land area is cultivated, and agriculture is mostly occurring in the young and old coastal areas. The young areas are used to produce fruits and vegetables, and the older plain is used for horticulture. Production is mainly focused on self-sufficiency, with surplus crops sold either within the village or in Paramaribo. Agriculture was historically economically important, but the sector has experienced a downward trend in the past decade. In general, women practice most of the shifting cultivation, but men are also involved, especially in the selection and clearing of new agricultural land. The typical crops cultivated in shifting agriculture in Suriname are dryland rice, banana, and cassava. Important cash crops are ginger, palm tire, cassava, Chinese tire, plantain, banana, sweet potatoes, and napi. In addition to crop production, Suriname's agricultural sector includes fisheries, livestock, and flowers and fruit. Which climate hazards are most concerning for the agricultural sector? The agricultural sector in Suriname is affected by four main hazards: changes in precipitation, higher winds, sea level rise, and higher temperatures, including heat waves. Historically, the agricultural sector has also been affected by flooding. We will now explore some of the ways climate variables would impact agricultural infrastructure in Suriname through various impact chains. So this diagram is different than the diagram in previous videos. I know it's busy, so I encourage you to pause the video and review some of the pathways yourself. Again, you can start with the blue boxes, which represent a climate variable or hazard. They lead to intermediate impacts in gray boxes and eventually downstream impacts in red boxes. The yellow boxes represent who or what may be exposed to the risk or downstream impact, and the green boxes show factors that would increase vulnerability. So I encourage you to pause the video here and review these pathways. You will probably notice that most of the pathways focus on how different climate variables and hazards impact crops, fish, and livestock production, all of which can lead to the only red box on here representing risk of food insecurity. However, because we're focusing on infrastructure for this module, how would agricultural infrastructure be impacted by climate change? One way that we have seen in previous videos is through loss and damage to infrastructure. So extreme weather events and sea level rise, including more waves, flooding, and coastal erosion, can damage or cause failure of infrastructure, for example, related to irrigation, storage, or agricultural equipment. Another important impact that is highlighted on this diagram is the impact to irrigation, so watering crops or plants, and specifically a decrease in the ability to use artificial irrigation. So sea level rise, saltwater intrusion, and less fresh water can result in less artificial irrigation. Agricultural activities and farmers may also be negatively impacted if higher temperatures increase water demand and there is a lack of irrigation infrastructure. What are the downstream impacts or consequences related to the pathways we just described? If crops are damaged or lost, this could result in higher food prices and lower competitiveness. Intermediate impacts could also increase production and transportation costs of food, which could contribute to the higher prices. If food is more expensive and if food is damaged or can't be consumed, this could increase the risk of food insecurity, meaning access to reliable food sources, which could be problematic for human health. Who or what would be more exposed to these impacts? In Suriname, agricultural households and smallholders would be more exposed. And finally, what can increase vulnerability? Smallholders who rely on production for their nutrition may be more vulnerable. Often the capacity of smallholders to mitigate production and economic losses or to prevent them by adapting their production system is quite limited. And so the quantity and quality of food they are able to generate and purchase is likely to be negatively impacted if a climate event occurs. And this could increase the risk of food insecurity. Another factor that can increase vulnerability is less protective infrastructure, including things like irrigation and proper drainage systems. And finally, factors such as gender and low income can also contribute to vulnerability, especially as Surinamese women are often in charge of many aspects of agricultural activities. Let's explore a case study. Meet Joyce. She's a rice farmer in the Nikiri district. Continued sea level rise and higher waves have resulted in increased saltwater intrusion in her freshwater sources. This has reduced her ability to use artificial irrigation infrastructure to irrigate her rice crop, and she's had to turn to alternative and more costly means of providing freshwater for irrigation. Similar people in her community are also experiencing the impacts of saltwater intrusion. As a result, the price of rice production and the price of rice has increased. Joyce is worried about the sustainability of outsourcing freshwater and the inability to use her artificial irrigation infrastructure, especially if her income from the rice production continues to decrease.